You picture a tech founder or a big company boss when you hear the word millionaire. You almost never picture a guy pushing a broom, standing at a security desk, or pumping gas. We're all told that building real wealth takes a six-figure salary, a fancy degree, or a lucky break. That's exactly what makes the story of Ronald Read so crazy. Ronald worked as a gas station attendant and a janitor for almost his entire life. Even today, if you look at the numbers for 2026, the average janitor in the US makes about $18 an hour. That adds up to roughly $39,000 a year. It's really hard to look at a $39,000 salary and see a path to $1 million. Most people look at their own paychecks and feel that same gap. You pay rent, you buy groceries, you pay your car bill, and there's almost nothing left. The math just doesn't seem to work out. That's the exact frustration so many of us feel. We think the game is rigged for people who make a lot of money. But Ronald lived on a salary below the national average and still managed to build an absolute fortune. His life proves that the size of your paycheck is only half the story. There are hidden mechanics to building wealth that don't care what your job title is. Ronald kept his massive wealth a complete secret from everyone he knew. When he passed away in 2014, his friends and family were totally shocked. They found out his stock portfolio was worth nearly $8 million. Nobody had any clue he was rich because he drove an old car and lived a very quiet life. Today, we see the exact opposite. We see people driving brand new cars and wearing expensive clothes, but they're drowning in credit card debt. We feel this pressure to look successful right now, even if it hurts our actual bank accounts. Ronald didn't care about looking rich. He only cared about actually having money. It's a completely different mindset. If you're watching this, you might be worried that you'll work your whole life and have nothing to show for it. That's a very real fear. But Ronald showed that careful choices can beat a flashy lifestyle every single time. By following a few specific rules, he turned a tiny paycheck into generational wealth. There are 4 main pillars you need to know if you want to reach that 7-figure mark on a normal salary. You don't need to be a Wall Street expert to use them. You have to start with the first major pillar, which is giving every single dollar a specific job. When you don't make a lot of money, you have to protect what you do make. The word frugal gets a really bad reputation these days. People hear it and they think about eating plain rice and beans every night or never going out with friends. It feels like a punishment. If you feel stressed just thinking about cutting your spending, you're definitely not alone. But true frugality isn't about depriving yourself of all joy. It simply means you're careful about where your money goes. You stop buying things you don't actually care about. If you want to build wealth on a normal salary, you have to save a piece of your income so that your money can start working for you. The beginning of this process is always the hardest part. You'll save for months and your bank account will still look pretty small. That's the moment most people give up. They think it isn't working. But getting the most value out of every single dollar is the foundation. You're building the engine that will eventually drive your investments. You can see this mindset in action with a very simple, everyday example like buying coffee. Think about someone using the McDonald's app on their phone when they want to grab a quick drink. The app usually has deals that rotate every week. You might see a buy one, get one free deal on a breakfast sandwich, or find an iced coffee for 99 cents. Without the app, that same iced coffee costs around $2.55. That means a simple tap on your phone saves you more than half the price. Now, let's be completely honest here. Saving $1.55 on a cup of coffee isn't going to magically buy you a house or turn you into a millionaire. That's the trap people fall into. They think small savings don't matter, so they just ignore them entirely. But that $1.55 is a reflection of a much bigger habit. It shows that you're actively looking for the best deal. You're paying attention to the numbers. When you apply that same exact thinking to buying a car, choosing an apartment, or picking your insurance, the savings turn into thousands of dollars. It's the behavior pattern that counts. People who build wealth treat $10 with the same respect they give to $10,000. You can actually make huge progress toward $1 million by focusing on your savings rate rather than your salary. Imagine a guy named Dave who makes over $700K a year. That's a massive amount of money. Most people would think all of their problems would disappear with that kind of paycheck. But if you peek behind the curtain at Dave's life, he has less than $50,000 sitting in his bank account. He only manages to save about $20,000 a year. Why? Because he bought a huge house on a 30-year mortgage that stretches his budget to the absolute limit. He and his wife are paying off 3 different car loans right now. He spends money as fast as it hits his account. We all probably know someone who lives exactly like this hypothetical Dave. They have the flashy lifestyle, but they're secretly stressed out about missing a single paycheck. It's terrifying to make that much money and have so little security. If your goal is to save $20,000 a year, you don't need to make 7 figures to do it. You can reach that exact same goal on a much smaller salary if you control your spending. Your savings rate is the real secret weapon, not your gross income. You don't have to act cheap for the rest of your life just to build wealth. You don't have to count pennies forever. You just need to be careful right now to get the ball rolling. Once you have some savings built up, you have to do what Ronald Read did. You have to invest that money for the long term. That brings us directly to the second pillar, which is to invest aggressively. This doesn't mean putting all your cash into wild, high-risk stocks or chasing crazy returns. It simply means you need to put your money into the market as early as you can, and you need to do it as often as possible. A lot of people are completely terrified of investing. They see the stock market drop on the news, and they think it's just a giant casino. They're afraid of losing the money they work so hard to save. That fear is completely normal. It feels much safer to keep cash hidden away in a drawer, but cash loses its value every single year because things get more expensive. Investing is simply the tool that protects your money from fading away. It's how you buy back your own time. You can see exactly how this math works if we look at some realistic numbers. Imagine you decide to invest $3,000 every single year. That's roughly 8% of the average janitor salary we talked about earlier. It breaks down to about $250 a month. If you put that money into something steady like an S&P 500 index fund, you can historically expect around an 8% return over the long run. If you start doing this at age 18 and keep going until you turn 65, your final account balance will grow to about $1.35 million. You'd officially be a millionaire. But what if you wait? If you wait until age 25 to start investing that same amount, you'll finish with around $777,000. And if you wait until age 35, your final number drops to about $339,000. This is where people often feel a deep sense of regret. They look at these numbers and wish they had started 10 years ago. That feeling of regret can sometimes paralyze you. You might think you've already missed your chance, so why even bother trying? The truth is, your dollars just need time to multiply. You can't change the past, but you can control what you do today. If you wait until you're 45 or 55 to start investing, your results drop off a cliff. Starting at 45 leaves you with about $137,000 by retirement, and starting at 55 leaves you with just $43,000. Think about the specific cost of waiting. Comparing the person who starts at age 25 to the person who waits until age 35 reveals a massive difference. Both people invest the exact same $250 a month, but the 25-year-old ends up with $437,000 more than the 35-year-old. Think about that for a second. Delaying your decision for 10 years literally costs you nearly $500,000. People often put off investing because life feels too busy or money feels too tight. They tell themselves they'll figure it out next year when they get a raise or when things settle down. But life never really settles down. There's always going to be a broken appliance, a car repair, or a medical bill waiting around the corner. Every day you wait is a day your money misses out on the chance to grow. That's why the best time to set up your investment account is the moment you finish watching this. Ronald Read didn't just start investing at a young age. He kept his money invested aggressively for his entire life. He didn't cash out when he turned 65. Since he passed away at the age of 92, he gave his portfolio an extra 27 years to grow. That's almost 3 decades of extra compounding. The way compound interest works is that the biggest gains always happen at the very end of the timeline. Your money builds on top of itself faster and faster the longer you leave it alone. Most of Ronald's $8 million fortune was likely created during those final 27 years. A lot of people believe retirement is a finish line where you pull all your chips off the table. They think you're supposed to stop growing your wealth the day you stop working. But if you want to build true lasting wealth, your money has to keep working even when you're sitting on a porch enjoying your free time. Ronald understood that his portfolio was a living thing. By leaving his investments alone, he let the math do the heavy lifting for him, while he went about his normal day. You can speed up this entire process if you increase the amount you invest over time. Time is clearly the most powerful force in investing, but the actual dollar amount you put in still matters a lot. We just saw that $3,000 a year can get you over $1 million if you start early enough. But what happens if you can bump that up? If you can manage to invest $5,000 or maybe even $7,000 a year, your wealth will compound at a much faster rate. You'll hit your goals so much sooner. When you're sitting on a low salary today, it's really easy to believe you'll be stuck at that exact income level for the rest of your life. We get trapped in our current reality, but things change. You get a raise, you find a better job, or you pick up a new skill that makes you more valuable. As your income slowly goes up, the trick is to avoid spending that extra money. If you can push those future pay bumps directly into your investment accounts, your timeline to $1 million shrinks dramatically. You just need to start with what you have right now and promise yourself that you'll increase it as your life improves. You can know exactly where every dollar goes, but the math falls apart if you don't actually trust the stock market. A lot of people sit on the sidelines because they think the whole system is rigged. You see a headline about a market crash and suddenly putting your hard-earned cash into stocks feels like jumping out of a plane without a parachute. That fear makes total sense. You work way too hard for your paycheck to just watch it vanish on a screen. But when you look at the historical data, the story shifts completely. People who treat investing like a long-term habit rather than a quick bet end up winning. The math of compounding is stubborn. It just works, you give it time, and it builds momentum. Let's say you make $50,000 a year. You decide to carve out $5,000 to put into an S&P 500 index fund every single year. You keep doing that for 30 years. Assuming a standard historical return, you would wake up 3 decades later with an account balance around $731,000. That is a life-changing pile of money for anyone. But the real magic hasn't even happened yet. You leave that $730,000 alone for just 4 more years, and the numbers start getting a little crazy. You keep adding your usual $5,000 a year. By year 34, your balance crosses the $1 million mark, hitting right around $1.03 million. Think about what just happened there. It took you 30 whole years of grinding to build up the first $731,000, but it only took 48 months to generate the next $300,000. The money starts doing the heavy lifting for you. This calculation doesn't even factor in getting married, finding a partner with their own income, or getting a promotion at work. This is just the raw baseline power of leaving your money alone to grow. When we look back at Ronald Read, we have to remember he was 92 years old when he passed away. His timeline was just massive. If you apply that same logic to our example, letting that money sit for an extra 20 years past the usual retirement age, the final number explodes. You would be looking at a balance near $5.5 million. Living a long, quiet life gave his portfolio the runway it needed to turn into a fortune. Warren Buffett gets talked about every single day in the financial news, but almost everyone misses the real secret behind his wealth. We all know he picks great companies, but the numbers tell a completely different story about why he is actually so rich. He has a net worth right around $145 billion today. The crazy part is that he made 99% of that money after he turned 60 years old. People look at a guy like that and assume he was always a billionaire. But when he hit 60, his net worth was roughly $3 billion. That means he generated over $140 billion in the later chapters of his life. He simply stayed in the game. He started buying stocks when he was just 10 years old, and he lived well into his 90s. Compound interest saves all the biggest rewards for the very end of the ride. When your account is that huge, even a normal 10% market gain translates to about $15 billion in a single year. That 1 year of growth is more than 5 times what his entire net worth was in his 50s. The math gets ridiculous, but the lesson is super practical. You beat the crowd by refusing to quit early. You can push your savings rate to the limit, but eventually you hit a wall if you only have one paycheck. The fourth major pillar is building multiple streams of income. When you rely entirely on a single boss for your survival, you carry a ton of hidden risk. If that company struggles or your position gets cut, your entire financial foundation shakes. People feel this anxiety constantly. You go to sleep wondering what happens if the company restructures next month. Author Tom Corley studied the habits of self-made millionaires and found some hard data on this exact problem. His research showed that 65% of millionaires had at least 3 different streams of income. About 45% had 4 streams, and 29% had 5 or more. They never leave their financial security in the hands of just one person. Spreading out how you make your money acts like a safety net. If one stream dries up, the others keep your life running smoothly. There are 5 really common ways regular people build these extra income layers. Breaking them down helps you see exactly which ones might fit into your own life. Most of us start our adult lives relying completely on earned income. You trade your hours and your energy for a paycheck. Whether you clock in at a warehouse, manage an office, or run your own freelance graphic design service, this is your primary engine. You'll probably rely on some form of earned income for the vast majority of your working years. But trading time for money has a strict ceiling because there are only 24 hours in a day. That brings us to the second type, which is investment income. This is the money that flows into your life just because you own a specific asset. You buy a broad index fund or stock in a solid company, and they periodically send you a cut of their profits as a dividend. Ronald Read mastered this exact strategy. He held shares in 95 different companies when he died, and a big chunk of them paid regular dividends. When those checks arrived, he never spent them on new clothes or a nicer car. He pushed every single penny right back into buying more shares. Reinvesting that cash is how you turn a tiny trickle of passive income into a rushing river over time. You can set up your brokerage account to automatically handle those dividends without you lifting a finger. It is usually called a dividend reinvestment plan. When the company pays you, the system instantly uses that exact dollar amount to buy fractional shares of the same stock. You skip the trading fees, and you slowly accumulate more ownership while you sleep. The third way to build your safety net is through interest income. This usually comes down to keeping your cash reserves in a high-yield savings account. A regular brick-and-mortar bank might offer you a microscopic 0.01% interest rate, which barely buys you a pack of gum by the end of the year. But high-yield accounts generally offer around 4% depending on current rates. If you keep a $10,000 emergency fund sitting in one of those accounts, it naturally generates roughly $400 over a year. It feels great to see free money hit your account every month just for keeping your safety net fully funded. That $400 won't let you quit your job, but it easily covers a couple of utility bills without any extra labor on your part. Property owners tap into a fourth popular income source, which revolves entirely around rental money. You usually picture someone buying a duplex and charging a family rent every month to live there. Real estate creates a very solid barrier against inflation, but buying a whole separate house demands a massive amount of cash up front. When your salary is already tight, saving up a 20% down payment for an investment property feels practically impossible. You look at home prices today, and it just makes you want to close the browser window. But rental income doesn't always have to mean buying a separate house. People get creative by renting out a spare bedroom to a local college student. Some people clear out their garage and rent it as storage space to neighbors who need room for their extra boxes. You could even rent out a reliable older car that you don't drive very often. The core idea is taking an asset you already control and letting someone else pay you for the temporary use of it. It takes something that just sits there and turns it into a little machine that steadily prints extra cash. A lot of folks add a fifth income layer by starting a side business or picking up weekend shifts. You clock out of your day job and spend a few hours driving for a delivery app, tutoring kids online, or flipping furniture from local thrift stores. The beauty of a side project is that you have total control over your schedule. You can test out different ideas without walking away from the safety of your primary paycheck. A great way to figure out if a side project is worth your energy is to check the hourly return. You just look at the hourly wage of your main job. If your weekend project pays you that same hourly rate or more, you are definitely moving in the right direction. It makes trading your free time completely logical. Sometimes these small side projects grow legs and turn into full-time companies, but they don't have to. You can just use that extra cash to pad your investments. If you use a side project specifically to max out your retirement accounts, you bypass the limits of a low salary entirely. You build a bridge to the exact same destination as someone making 6 figures. You pull all these pieces together, and the math of becoming a millionaire suddenly stops looking like a fairy tale. Tracking your spending, getting your money into the market fast, waiting for compound interest to do its job, and adding new ways to get paid. That is the exact blueprint. We stare at wealthy people and assume they had a secret map. We think they got lucky with crypto or inherited a massive trust fund. But the quiet reality is usually just decades of extreme, boring discipline. You have to admit that growing wealth on a smaller paycheck is incredibly tough. It tests your patience every single week. You will have moments where you want to drain your savings to buy a newer car because you feel like you deserve a reward for working so hard. Fighting that urge takes a completely different level of mental toughness. It means saying no to immediate comfort so you can buy permanent freedom later. The people who actually pull this off share a quiet resilience. They care way more about the numbers in their actual bank account than the image they project to their neighbors. Ronald Read proved that a humble job title never has to dictate your net worth. You can clean floors or pump gas and still outsmart the guys wearing sharp suits on Wall Street. The size of your paycheck dictates how fast you can start building your portfolio, but your daily habits decide if you actually finish the race. Wealth is rarely about what you earn today. It is entirely about what you keep and how long you let it grow. Every time you redirect a handful of dollars toward an index fund, you rewrite a small piece of your future. It feels slow, but that steady rhythm eventually breaks the cycle of living paycheck to paycheck. You start making choices based on what you actually want out of life, rather than panicking about the next credit card bill. If finding practical ways to quietly build that kind of financial freedom makes sense to you, hit subscribe and join the community here. The math is definitely on your side, and you have exactly what it takes to let time do the heavy lifting for you.